Now, I want to share with you the steps that I'm suggesting that we should take at this point, and then give you some specific information on help available for businesses that the government has announced and that we know of at the moment. Obviously, first and foremost, I would like to encourage you all to follow the government advice that is being given every day. And I think it's important that we accept that we are going to have to make personal sacrifices as well as financial sacrifices as time goes on. It might be wise to prepare or work through different scenarios, and I would strongly suggest that we do a business cash flow forecast which covers at least the next 12 to 13 weeks. If you do need an Excel template, please let us know. We have got Excel templates available and are very happy to share that with you. It's probably wise to do a personal budget or a personal cash flow as well, and to identify any areas where you might need support or where support might be available. One of the obvious places to check is your insurance arrangements to see whether there is any assistance that the insurance covers that you have in place can provide. I must admit, unfortunately, what we are hearing at the moment is that most covers do not cover the scenario that we are facing as a nation at the moment. But nevertheless, please may I suggest you speak to your insurers and see if there is anything there that might be able to assist you. As I said, I'm pretty sure it's worrying times for all of us. Please talk to us. We are here for you. Feel free to pick up that phone and just ask our advice and suggestions whenever we can. We will help. There is a primary government advice page, which is www.gov.uk/coronavirus. There's loads and loads of information on this page, and it is being updated frequently, daily, if not hourly. There's information there about how to protect yourself, how to protect others, employment, financial support, advice for businesses, healthcare workers, carers, travel, public services, how you can help, and the current status of the COVID-19 crisis in the UK. The first specific support that I would like to talk about is the business interruption loan scheme. And the reason why I want to start with this one is because I think that this is the one that we are likely to be able to access the quickest out of all the support that is available there. It is actually expected that the applications will commence in the week commencing the 23rd of March 2020. It's a very wide eligibility criteria. It's actually available for businesses whose turnover is below £45 million per year. The maximum value that can be requested is £5 million, and 80% of the lending is going to be government backed. In addition to this, the government is going to cover the first 12 months of interest payments that fall due. Now, whether we are talking about overdraft facilities, term facilities, loans, overdrafts, invoice finance facilities, asset finance facilities, I'm not sure. I am making the assumption that the banks are going to use their normal commercial judgment on this. There are some sectors that are specifically excluded, and we have got the list of who we believe are going to be specifically excluded. There is further information and website links that we are providing for you to explore this avenue further if you wish. Next, I would like to specifically talk about those employers who have staff. The first thing that I guess we need to talk about is what to do if your staff is sick. Now, we all know that we have got the traditional statutory sick pay arrangement that is already in place in the UK. And traditionally, statutory sick pay covers 28 weeks maximum, and it is at a flat rate of £94.25 per week. You must remember that normally SSP is a cost that the employer bears, so there is actually no government support normally for statutory sick pay. And normally the first 3 days of sickness are not actually payable to the employee. Now, what the government has done is the government has said that actually, if the employee's sickness is due to COVID-19 symptoms, then that SSP is going to kick in on day 1 as opposed to day 4. It is a little unclear what the effective date is on this. We think it's the 16th of March. Some publications called the 13th of March. There have actually been 2 statutory instruments that went through. One caused the 13th of March and one caused the 16th of March. Now, the SSP itself is going to apply to those people who are sick, but it's also going to apply to those people who need to self-isolate because of the government guidance. And I want to make this very clear. This is not a situation where, as a parent, for example, I can claim statutory sick pay because I have got childcare responsibilities. This is a situation where, as a parent, I may need to isolate because my child is ill. And for that reason, because I need to isolate, I would be entitled to statutory sick pay. Now, the government also said that provided that you employ less than 250 people, the first 2 weeks of the SSP is going to be reclaimable. At this point, we don't know how it's going to be repaid, and we don't know when it's going to be repaid. From what we understand, the systems are being developed to be able to cope with the reporting and the administration of the rebate scheme. Now, from a practical point of view, I would say if your employee is sick, ask the question, is your sickness due to COVID-19 or is it not? If it's not due to COVID-19, please do not assume that the first 2 weeks of SSP will be refunded by the government. I do believe it's normal SSP rules that would apply. On the other hand, if it's due to COVID-19, please do not automatically assume that the employee is going to be entitled to SSP, because there are certain minimum criteria that employees need to meet to be eligible, and as far as we know, those normal qualifying rules still apply exactly the same way as they would for other sickness. Really, the best suggestion I have at this point is to contact us if you are faced with employee sickness, and we will try and help you navigate through whether SSP is payable, not payable, whether it's payable from day 1 on day 4, and whether it's reclaimable or not reclaimable. The government specifically said that if the sickness is due to COVID-19, they are not insisting on medical evidence. So at this stage, they are saying use your discretion, and on that basis, we would suggest that you ask for written confirmation from your employee as to whether the sickness was due to COVID-19 or not COVID-19, and retain that as evidence for potential future reclaims. The next thing I would like to talk about is the coronavirus job retention scheme. And as an employer myself, I'm sure I'm not the only one who is currently concerned about trying to safeguard my employees' jobs, salaries, make sure that there is enough work coming in and I can keep paying them. Unfortunately, I know that some employers are in a much more urgent situation with these decisions than we ourselves are, and the government has very specifically stated that retaining employees' jobs is very, very important to them. In fact, they asked employers to consider what help is available before making the decision to lay people off or make them redundant. Now, all UK businesses are entitled to participate in the coronavirus job retention scheme, and the government announced an initial support period of 3 months. Now, these 3 months may be extended. The Chancellor already said that the 3 months may be extended, and the support is also backdated to apply from the 1st of March 2020. The basic support package is basically HMRC reimbursing 80% of the wage costs of furloughed workers, as they are called, and it's £2,500 per employee per month maximum figure that they have currently set for individual employee support. Procedurally, the first thing I would say is that there might be some contractual negotiations that need to take place. I'm not sure what kind of contracts you have in place. It might be that there has to be a new contract put in place or an amendment put in place. And if you need help with this, then I would suggest that you speak to an HR professional to navigate through the contractual issues around this. But assuming you can do this, the first step is to designate the affected employees as furloughed workers. Now, not only do you have to designate employees as furloughed workers, you actually have to notify your employees that they are now furloughed workers as well. Once an employee has been designated as a furloughed worker, they are not supposed to work for you at all. So please consider very carefully, we are not talking about reduced working hours here. We are talking about a furloughed employee not being able to do any work for you at all. There will be a reporting scheme under which you will report this information to HMRC as to who your furloughed workers are, and HMRC will then refund 80% of the individual's costs up to £2,500 per employee per month. The Chancellor's hope is that this new system is going to be in place before the end of April. The current systems are not able to cope either with the reporting requirements or the refund requirements, but from what we understand, they are working very, very hard behind the scenes to try and get this up and running before the end of April. Obviously, as further information becomes available, we will let you know. For example, we don't know at the moment how it's going to be calculated in terms of what an employee's wage cost would be. We don't know whether there's a qualifying period to calculate average earnings, for example. So we are very much in the dark in relation to the nitty-gritty details, but as they come out, we will let you know. The next part that I would like to talk about is cash flow support that the Chancellor has made available for certain sectors and certain types of businesses. The first one being VAT registered businesses. To ease the cash flow, the Chancellor announced the VAT payment deferment scheme. And this is actually an automatic deferral of all VAT payments which fall due between the 20th of March 2020 and the 30th of June 2020. All UK businesses are eligible automatically. There is no application process to go through to be essentially able to defer the VAT payment. The expectation is that the VAT payments which are not made in this roughly 3 months time frame should be paid by the 5th of April 2021. HMRC have said that VAT refunds will continue to be processed as normal. And I would really like to emphasize the point that we are not seeing anything in the legislation or in any of the statutory instruments at the moment that says that the returns do not need to be filed. So please continue working on the assumption that the returns will continue to have to be filed on time. It is the payment that is being deferred, not the filing. From a practical perspective, because it's so fluid and we are so in the dark at the moment, I would suggest that if your VAT falls payment on the 7th of April and you have got a direct debit set up, it's probably prudent to cancel that direct debit arrangement now. The Chancellor has also announced measures to ease the cash flow for those people who are self-employed. Now, if you are self-employed, you know that normally payments would need to be made on the 31st of January of each year and the 31st of July of each year. The 31st of July being a payment on account of about 6 months worth of tax. There is now an automatic deferral in place for all the payments on account that were due to be paid on the 31st of July 2020. So it is for all UK self-employed businesses. All UK self-employed businesses are eligible. And once again, there is no application process. This is an automatic deferment. There should be no penalties, no interest charges for late payment. And the expectation at this point is that the payment on account that should have been paid by the 31st of July 2020 will have to be paid by the 31st of January 2021. In terms of other taxes, such as PAYE or corporation tax, for example, we are not aware of any specific easements. However, the Chancellor does recognise that there is potentially temporary financial distress that businesses are going to suffer as a result of COVID-19. So HMRC have actually scaled up their time to pay service. I must emphasize that the time to pay service is a payment deferral on a case-by-case basis. It is being decided on a case-by-case basis. However, there is a special helpline set up specifically for COVID-19 cases. It's a different phone number from the usual phone number. The phone number is 0800 01 59 559. I want to now specifically talk about help available to those who operate from business premises. There are a number of measures around relief grant schemes for businesses affected, and specifically, firstly, I would like to mention the retail, hospitality and leisure sector. So when I talk about the retail, hospitality and leisure sector, I'm talking about shops, restaurants, cafes, drinking establishments, cinemas, live music venues, hotels, guest houses, self-catering accommodation and so forth. So basically places which have been set up for the assembly and pleasure of spending our spare time. For businesses in this sector, there will be a business rates holiday for the whole of the tax year 2020-2021. It is the local authorities who are going to rebill as soon as possible, and the current advice is that you do not need to do anything right now. There's also a grant scheme for the retail, hospitality and leisure sector. and this is a one-off grant. It's not repayable, and depending on the rateable value of the business, the grant is either £10,000 or £25,000. So once again, it's for the retail, hospitality and leisure sector. And if you are in this sector and your rateable value of your premises falls below £15,000, then you are entitled to a grant of £10,000. If your rateable value is between £15,000 and £51,000, then the grant figure is £25,000. This grant scheme will be administered by the local authorities, and the advice once again is that you do not need to do anything right now. We do not have a timescale of when these grants are going to be made available at this point, but we will let you know as soon as we hear anything further. I want to mention nurseries as well. And when I talk about nurseries, I talk about those providers who are on the Ofsted Early Years Register, so whose purpose is wholly or mainly the provision of the Early Years Foundation curriculum. Nurseries are also going to receive a payment holiday for business rates for tax year 2020-2021. Similarly to the leisure sector, is the local authorities who are going to rebill, and the local authorities are going to rebill as soon as possible, and our current understanding is that right now you do not need to do anything. There is grant support for those businesses as well who are receiving what is called small business rates relief or rural rate relief. These businesses are also going to be entitled to a one-off £10,000 grant. This is also going to be administered by the local authorities, and once again the advice is that you do not need to do anything right now. And unfortunately, once again, we do not know when these grants are going to become available. We are awaiting further timescales and further guidance from the government on this. I just want to spend a few minutes talking about the Companies House filings for those businesses who are incorporated. Now, Companies House, if you do not file your accounts on time, automatically levies penalties, and they are one of the government agencies who actually have very little power to do anything about automatic penalties that have been levied or imposed. However, what they have said is that if immediately before the deadline it becomes apparent that the accounts can't be filed on time because the company is affected by COVID-19, then that company can make an application to extend the period allowed for filing. So just to be very clear, this has to be done before the deadline has passed, and obviously it has to be agreed by Companies House as well. Finally, I would like to mention something that we don't normally talk about, which is benefits and support for those who are on low incomes. I very much hope that together we will all be able to navigate through with the least amount of personal and financial losses. However, I just do want to mention employment support allowance and universal credit. These two benefits are specifically there for individuals and families on low incomes. And I think it's very important to make the point that both ESA and universal credit are available regardless of whether you are employed, whether you're self-employed, or whether you are unemployed. Both of these benefits have had their amounts increased by the Chancellor very recently, and they also extended the scope of both of these benefits to include people who are infected by the coronavirus disease, those people who are in isolation, or those people who are caring for a child or a qualifying young person who is a member of the person's household who are infected by the coronavirus disease or having to be in isolation. So that support is there for those who are on low incomes. We are also hearing information about a potential mortgage payment deferment scheme. We know that the government is working with lenders to allow a 3-month payment holiday period from mortgage repayments, but I must admit that we have got very little detail at the moment, apart from the fact that the banks are working on the fine details. At this point, my only suggestion is that you speak to your individual banks if you need this help urgently. And I would also suggest that you confirm with them whether your credit rating would be affected by any deferral they may or may not agree to. There is safeguarding for those people who are in rented accommodation as well. You can find more information about this on the government's website. And as always, as I said, if you need to speak to us, please speak to us, because we are here and we are here to support you and get through this period. So I think right now it just leaves me to say, please can we all work together? Please be assured that we are here, we are trying to support you. Please do ask questions. We will do whatever we can to support you. And I very much hope that we will all stay healthy, and we will keep you updated with further information as and when it becomes available. So look after yourselves, your families, stay safe, and until next time, speak to you soon.